Welcome to another edition of Anglican Unscripted. This is episode 85, where we're going to reward the fundraisers and givers to Anglican TV. George, what do you have there in your hands?
Foley Beach of Atlanta, Georgia. This is yours.
Oh,
Thank
wow.
you, sir. Thank you.
Foley Beach gave us a large donation to go to GAFCON, and one of our running jokes is we're giving away George's kittens. However, if you do get a box from Anglican TV and it's meowing, open it right away. I'm Kevin Carlson.
And I'm George Conger. And today is November 14th, 2013.
One, I have on the other side of the Skype line Charlie Treckler, and he is one of the new management people over at the Anglican Relief and Development. And you've been there how long now?
This will be about one full year.
Okay. And Nancy Norton is normally the person to be talking to. She said, talk to Charlie. He knows what's going on right now in the Philippines. For everybody who's watching the show, obviously knows a great travesty and devastation from Mother Nature has taken a typhoon and placed it over a place that does not have concrete buildings and wiped out a lot of lives. What can Anglican Relief and Development do to help in this situation?
Well, Kevin, thank you, first of all, so much for having us on. As you say, the situation is really very dire, and there are a lot of needs right now. There's need for clean water, food, shelter. This storm and the 200-mile-an-hour winds, probably 25-foot storm surge, has really wiped out all the infrastructure that's there. So the primary thing that we're actually focusing on right now is clean water, because in the wake of a disaster like this, that's usually the most pressing need. Since the storm struck on Friday, a lot of folks have really been without water for several days now, and so that's really becoming a critical thing. So we're working with partners on the ground who have some sort of emergency water filtration systems that they'll be able to use to provide clean water to victims.
Now, you've responded to several disasters in the past and with great success. How can Anglican Unscripted viewers help Anglican Relief and Development?
Yes, the best thing to do, honestly, right now is to donate. Because of the way the Philippines are, they're an archipelago, and so just bringing supplies and equipment in right now, especially with all the roads that are there being out, is extremely expensive. Mm-hmm. And so in order to bring these filtration systems in, we're trying to raise funds for that. So if viewers want to help, go to www.anglicanaid.net, and you should see something right there on the homepage where you'd be able to make a donation to the relief effort. And then beyond that, I mean, please pray. I know I've been reading news reports and hearing just about the emotional, psychological, spiritual devastation. People in villages who are just sort of wandering around because their homes and businesses are completely gone. And so there's just a huge need for prayer, not only for physical needs, but also for spiritual needs that people have in the wake of something like this.
Charlie, I want to thank you for your time. We will indeed keep the Philippines in our prayers. And we'll probably be looking to you for updates in the next couple weeks.
Thank you so much, Kevin. I appreciate your time.
George, let's do a post-GAFCON story. Now, I know, post-GAFCON. We did a whole episode 84, which was post-GAFCON. Everything Kevin and George thought about GAFCON 2 and more. However, we need to do a post-GAFCON story because more news has come out since episode 84 a couple weeks ago, specifically dealing with the Archbishop of Canterbury. Now, a little background. Archbishop of Canterbury tried earnestly to address the opening plenary of GAFCON 2 if he was going to be invited. That couldn't happen. he was allowed to do the opening Eucharist and talk to the GAFCON primates before things got started. It worked in a schedule. There's been conflicting reports about why he went to Kenya. And one of those reports was he went to Kenya to be in solidarity with the victims of the terrorist attack at the Westgate Mall. A very plausible reason to go to Kenya. Another reason was he was going to go and be in, I'm not going to say solidarity, but talk to the GAFCON people and let them know that Canterbury understands they have issues and that Canterbury is willing to work with those issues. He even went so far as to say the instruments of the communion are broken in his sermon and that there needs to be new leadership for the Anglican communion in the 21st century. That's quite a bit that happened. But now we're looking out a couple days later and a couple weeks later as to why he says he was in Kenya. And what I'm finding here is he's pulling what I call Rowanisms. And a Rowanism is to always meld to the people you're with. If you're with liberals, you speak liberal. When you're with conservatives, you speak conservative. When you're with atheists, you speak atheism. And this is what I see Justin Welby doing, is he's pulling a Rowanism, George. What are we talking about here?
Well, you're absolutely right, Kevin. And let me digress slightly and say, because there has been such silence in the wake of GAFCON, the Archbishop of Canterbury's actions have taken a disproportionately large share of the attention.
Sure.
As you mentioned, when Justin Welby was with the GAFCON primates, when he preached in All Saints Cathedral in Nairobi, he didn't talk about the Westgate Mall bombing. In fact, when he was in his sermons at the cathedral, he spent more time talking about the Mau Mau rebellions of the 1960s, British rule over Kenya and the colonialist struggle. Yet when he went to the World Council of Churches meeting in Busan, South Korea, and talked to Vatican Radio, he was asked about GAFCON, and he said, I went to Kenya to be in solidarity with the Kenyan people following the Westgate Mall bombing, and oh, by the way, I met with these archbishops.
It's kind of one of those, and I hate to say it, I have two daughters and a son who are of that dating age, and it's one of these kiss and don't tell type situations. Justin Welby was there, and I don't know, I'm sure that the GAFCON primates feel it was productive because they let Justin Welby know how they felt about the Anglican Communion. I think the problem here is Justin Welby did not like what he heard, and now he's either trying to distance himself from GAFCON or stick to a script that, it's hard to understand the script of why you would not admit to your first date with GAFCON.
Well, there's Justin Welby, determines his own conduct. But so we can't really talk about what's in his heart because we have no idea. I have no idea. Well, I really do, but I'm not going to tell you. But what does this do for his leadership role in the Anglican Communion? Last night, Elliot Wabakula spoke in St. Andrew's Church in Mount Pleasant, South Carolina, and he talked about the GAFCON movement, what's happening next. And he talked about the fact that one of the things we need to address is this assumption that Anglicanism is identified by its relationship with the Archbishop of Canterbury. And Elliot Wabakula said, essentially, that's not true anymore. And we're in a time of mix and turmoil, and the Archbishop of Canterbury is coming across to the Africans as a man who's two-faced. I hate to put it that way, but he's got one word for liberals, he's got one word for conservatives. It may be couched in terms of reconciliation. I have to be a friend to everybody, therefore to be friendly, I'll say things that you want to hear. But in this world of mass communications, we hear what he says to the other side. And it causes a great deal of concern on the issue of integrity.
It does, because Canterbury has become irrelevant because of the people who've held the office of the Archbishop of Canterbury. The ACC has become irrelevant because of the people who are in office in the ACC. The Primates Council, the Primates have become irrelevant because of the other two factions, not letting them have a voice.
Let me compare, I've been at this long enough to have been now covered 3 archbishops of Canterbury. George Carey was always George Carey. Now, some people detested George Carey, and in the Church of England and in the overseas church, they really disliked him, and a lot of it was snobbery. Well, I won't go into that, but George Carey always said the same thing. What he said to the Episcopal Church was what he said to the Church in Nigeria. He didn't shade or disguise his language in a way that seemed to try to curry favor with people. And when Carey ran the show, he had the absolute loyalty and support of the African churches. They may not have agreed with everything he said. Certainly they had some disputes with him over the issue of women clergy, for instance, 10 years ago, but they were loyal. That loyalty does not exist anymore.
No.
Or if it does, it's limited to a few people, very few people.
And now that's evidence in this organization called AMIE, the Anglican Mission in England. GAFCON has taken on a position that they're going to help traditionalists and Orthodox in England deal with issues like women's ordination and other liberal things like same-sex marriage happening in England. So this is pretty provocative because, let's be honest here, here in America, we had all-out hostility and persecution of clergy. 700 people deposed by Catherine Jefferts Schori and her minions. You don't have that happening over in England. There's not a mass execution going on of the clergy. So you have to say, is it time now for GAFCON to go in, or is this too early, or is this just because Canterbury has become irrelevant that they're willing to go in and protect those traditional bishops and clergy?
Well, we need to distinguish between the American and the English situation. The American situation, as you said, was one of overt hostility and in some cases outright oppression. In England, we're really talking about indifference being the sort of controlling factor, both indifference in the culture. It's not that England is hostile to religion. It's not that all of a sudden everybody is becoming a Roman Catholic or a Muslim and the Church of England is falling out. It's just religion, most people are indifferent to the Church of England. As Gerald Bray, I think he told you, Kevin, the Church of England is sort of like the local library system. You like it being in there, but it's not something you get that worked up about. You just expect it to be there. It's not something that informs and controls every aspect of your life or your faith life. And that's a different scenario than the religious culture we find in the United States.
Well, some would say that England has a state church, the Church of England. We don't have anything like that here in America, but both of us are suffering what we call a post-Christian culture, one where hedonism and narcissism is really taking over. We have gone from the yuppie generation to Generation X to Generation Me, and that's really become evident in the culture of England and here in the Northeast in America.
Well, we have a Miley Cyrus culture, one that isn't particularly bright, isn't particularly good, isn't particularly energetic, but lives from moment to moment, pleasure to pleasure, stunt to stunt, and it's very, very hard to teach deep moral truths in a culture that can't think for more than 5 minutes at a shot. And so that the problem AMIE has is that there are some instances of persecution, but not to the wide, massive scale that we've had in the United States. And there's not the money behind the AMIE that there has been behind the ACNA and other breakaway movements in the United States. So where GAFCON steps in, it can offer leadership, it can offer spiritual support. As Peter Jensen said, it can effectively be a third province for England. Now, how does that translate into actual action?
Well,
I don't know.
Let's be honest. Catherine Jefferts Schori is more responsible for the start of the ACNA than GAFCON. Will Justin Welby be more responsible for the beginning of AMIE in England and its success than the Office of Canterbury?
One of the people we spoke with, Kevin, in Nairobi was Gavin Ashenden. And he is an Anglo-Catholic. I think I would also call him a charismatic as well. But his point is that in England, we are going to see, in his belief, in 5, 6, 7 years, we're going to see clergy jailed for refusing to marry gay couples, for speaking from the pulpit that homosexuality is a sin. They'll be brought up on charges of intolerance and bigotry. And until that point hits, I don't think we're going to see a real coalition come together. You really do need blood in the streets. Now, we've been told by some of our English friends that that's coming, but it's not happening today. And part of AMIE's strategy is, before the blood runs, is to get the institution and structure together so everybody can hang together. Whether they can pull it off is a question.
It is a question because from church history, and most of our viewers better know this, in England, there's never been Reformation without the spilling of blood. George, in story 2, we're going to respond to an article that you wrote in AnglicanInc.com. It said the Episcopal Church has lost 24% of its membership in 10 years. And I'm outside of the Episcopal Church now, so when I see that number, I don't freak out. I just say, of course. Now, people inside the Episcopal Church look at that number and say, ooh, that's not good. We're not here to beat up on the Episcopal Church, because every mainline denomination is posting numbers of decline between 6 and 24%. And it's not specifically the church leadership and the church to blame. There's lots to blame. I would love to blame the seminaries for putting out horrible priests. I would love to blame churches for not teaching Jesus. I would love to blame churches for not raising their children to love and know Jesus. The list goes on. But we also need to refer back to what George and I were talking about in story 1, where we talked about society and hedonism and narcissism and what we're letting fill our minds 40 hours a week instead of the church filling our minds. And the competition is horrid.
The Episcopal Church has the distinction of falling farther and faster than anybody else, and for that I'm proud. We're number 1!
Whoa.
But everybody's falling, Kevin, you said. Even conservative denominations like the Southern Baptist Church and the Roman Catholic Church. If it were not for Hispanic immigration, the Catholic Church would be tanking. Mm-hmm. What's going on here? There's plenty of anecdotal evidence. No one really, I think, has put their finger on the exact cause, but I think, if you ask my opinion, it is the destruction, the decline of the nuclear family of our communities. There were books published about 10, 15 years ago about bowling alone, the destruction of social interaction with people. It's true. And people moved to Florida, and 10 years ago they would move to Florida and they would automatically join a church because they were in a church up north. Now they're moving to Florida and they're moving into these retirement communities or these trailer parks. They're not getting involved in the social life of the trailer parks. They're not joining their local Moose Lodge or Elks Club or church. And we're seeing that across the board in my little neck of the woods of declining participation outside the home and the TV.
Well, one of the things I think the church has not done has not caught up with how to minister to the changing culture. We no longer have what I call the front porch Mayberry culture, where you'd walk down the street and you'd visit all your neighbors who are sitting on the front porch in the rocking chairs with a hound dog under the porch. Those days have long passed. It's now a culture where people are consumed by their technology. I'm one of them. They're consumed with instant communication. I'm one of those too. And we live in a 24-hour news cycle where all we do is feed ourselves information. And the church and the message of Christ has a hard time competing with that in this set of structure that we've set up for ourselves. The church didn't set up this culture, but the church needs to find a way to respond to it. My kids, all through school, were one of the few kids that belonged to divorced parents. My wife and I have been married for almost 25 years in a row. And you don't find that even in the Christian churches that schools that my kids went to. they were the minority in that. And that's part of this culture that we have to teach the church to, not to adjust its message to, but to transform into.
Kevin, I want to take one slight little point. I don't think I'm disagreeing with you, but I want to make a distinction. Mm-hmm. I don't think the Mayberry culture, as you described it, was good enough. Right. If it were good enough, we wouldn't be in this problem. If we were, it was a reflection of an idealized American society that really may not have been there. And the churches that have sort of adopted that to be a Christian means to be part of this, Mayberry society, to be in church, are missing the boat. I really think it's all about personal transformation. And a church that doesn't preach and teach and live out the personal transformation of an individual in his human heart, I think is destined to decline. Yeah. Because it's married itself to a culture that is passing away.
Yeah, I wasn't holding Mayberry as a panacea. I'm comparing it to the what we have now as far as completely distinct cultures. One that would be completely unrecognizable to each other. And we're not here to proclaim the holiness of Barney Fife. I don't think. So, now, how do we deal with this? How does the church change its, not make Christ more palatable, not change its message, but deal with the destruction of the family, to regain its numbers and to grow a transformed church? Now, is this decline because we have untransformed people in our pews? Yeah, I would say that's one of the reasons. Is this decline because we aren't teaching transformation in our seminaries? Yeah, that's probably got a lot to do with it. Are we ever going to be able to fight and overcome society? Yeah, I don't know.
Let me turn again to what Elliot Wabakula said last night, Kevin, in that presentation we saw. Archbishop Wabakula said that the problem with liberalism, and he didn't mean just Episcopal liberalism, but liberalism, political, social, across the board, was it put greater trust in institutions and in mankind's ability to solve problems, and put the Bible to one side as being fallible and flawed. And we, evangelicals, for want of a better word, are the opposite. We see the Bible as a solution, and society and the institutions as fallible and flawed. I believe, and I believe this with my whole heart, that unless we stand upon the Bible and adopt and propound a biblical worldview based upon our personal transformation and our repentance and the atoning death of Jesus Christ, there I hit all the evangelical points quickly. So for our Anglo-Catholic viewers and the sacraments, and but my point is, we have the answer. We just aren't living it out the way we should.
Well, I take even a bigger view, and that's one of the persecuted church. The persecuted church has always been a growing church. The unpersecuted church has always been a declining church. And we talked about this in England. Let's talk about it in America. Persecution is coming to Christians here in America. The shores where the Pilgrims came, the Puritans came and left England, is going to start spilling Christian blood soon. Now, it's not going to be blood. It's going to be spiritual blood. That will have the unintended consequence to this culture of growing the church. Persecution grows the church. It leads to repentance. It leads to transformed lives. It's a sad fact. Via the magic of Skype, I do not have Alan Haley on the other line. This is George and I. We're going to do the legal segment on the Diocese of Quincy because we need to protect Alan Haley and the other legal team from about what we're going to say. The Diocese of Quincy won in court. The judge said, listen, there's no law that says you cannot leave the Episcopal Church. Take your property and your funds, and what you've done is lawful. The Episcopal Church has decided that's not good enough, and we have gone from a line of evil to the line of wicked in my mind's eye. George, give us a little background. What happened after the Diocese of Quincy won in court?
Well, after the breakaway diocese won its lawsuit, it then had a right to touch the funds that had been frozen for several years, and they haven't been able to pay their attorneys for some time, and the attorneys have been working without payment in most cases. Well, the Episcopal Church went in and filed a motion with the Court of Appeals asking that the funds be frozen until a final appeals verdict is issued. And this was done without a hearing, and there's some raised eyebrows over the way this was done, Illinois being a state with not a very good reputation for honesty among its elected officials. And, well, that was a strategy. And then on top of that, the Episcopal Church and the Diocese of Chicago filed brand new lawsuits in Peoria, basically alleging the same case of conduct that they lost in another state case. And let me just say, Kevin, let me just depart. This is one of the things that makes me really ashamed to be an Episcopalian, because people who are saying they speak on behalf of the Episcopal Church are engaging in morally reprehensible conduct. They are not seeking to find the truth. They are not seeking to have justice prevail. They are trying to drive Quincy into bankruptcy, freezing their money, putting up what I believe to be frivolous lawsuits that have no merit whatsoever in order to beat their foe. Winning is more important than truth. Well, it's no wonder lawyers are detested.
Yeah, this isn't about winning either. This is about torture. We've gone the evilness of the frivolous lawsuits is one thing, but this is wicked. This is torture. This is refiling lawsuits using every little trick in the book, getting a judge who won't have a hearing and just has been elected. And I can't, having grown up in Wisconsin, I can't tell you about the political chicanery that goes on in Illinois. It is a very, very corrupt government, top to bottom. There's not a Chicago mayor that has not been put in jail for the last 80 years.
Governor. Chicago mayors stay out of jail, and the governors go to jail. But
it's really a bad place. So it's no surprise that they could get a judge to do this in the appeals process. We talked to, off the record, attorneys who've represented ACNA legal stuff in the past, and they said, listen, this is very bad for Quincy because they probably found a corrupt judge who will just rubber stamp, close this down, stop payments from going out until the final appeals process is gone, because they found a corrupt judge. And that is a sad fact, and that's how we move from evil to wicked. It's not a story George and I want to tell you about, but this is the Episcopal Church of the 21st century. Does it relate to the last story of losing 24%? Probably not. It relates to something completely different when we talk about people who are leading a church of a new age without Jesus.
And as an Episcopal priest, it bothers me that money that my little congregation sends up the chain and makes its way eventually to New York is spent in this way. According to the financial statements of the Episcopal Church, over $20 million has been paid to the law firm of the chancellor of the presiding bishop. Now, normally, this would be called a conflict of interest. In other words, the chancellor of the presiding bishop is recommending the Episcopal Church hire his law firm to engage in a campaign to bankrupt their opponents by outspending them through legal fees. Now, a partner in a law firm that brings in $20 million in fees gets a good whack of those funds. Now, I see this as a conflict of interest. Now, it may well be that the presiding bishop has signed a waiver saying her attorneys enriching themselves is good for the Episcopal Church, and in her opinion, it's a proper use of our church monies. But I just find it reprehensible. I really do.
Cool. these are the personal opinions of George Condor, not Anglican. All I can see is a lawsuit over this. But this is why we're trying to protect Alan Haley and Tad, the lawyer doing the hard work on the ground in the Diocese of Quincy.
But the wonderful thing is, I'm judgment-proof, and my wife is an attorney. So sue!
Okay, I got Canterbury on the line. Well, I got the next best thing. Peter Old is going to talk to us about what? I got Peter Old from England, and we're going to talk about the reaction to GAFCON on the ground in England.
Yeah.
And we're going to talk about this famous pilling report that will soon one day come out, or maybe not come out. First, okay, I was in Nairobi, Kenya, big meeting with many of the primates of the Anglican Communion. A gentleman of great nature and structure came over. His name was Archbishop Justin Welby. He gave two sermons. One was, I love and feel for you, Kenya. One was, I love GAFCON, and I'm here to speak to you. Two faces of Justin. What are we to believe? Is this how Englishmen are trying to figure out who they're speaking to, and they're catching on real quick that they need to change the story? Or is he just, deer in the headlights?
I have no idea. I wasn't there. To be honest, the response here in England, in the Church of England to GAFCON 2, has been mild indifference.
Right.
Basically. I can demonstrate for you. Here's a copy of the Church Times. Can you see there for your readers? Church Times.
Look at the flowers.
Oh, look at the pretty flowers. They're lovely. And I'm just looking at page 1, page 2, page 3, page 4, page 5, page 6, page 7, page 8, page 9.
So there's nothing in the Church Times about the Anglican.
There was something last week about it,
Right.
you know, because it was like after it kind of happened, but it's sort of everybody's ignoring it on the surface. I think
Right.
underneath, some people are taking it very seriously. Okay, what they're not taking seriously is the Anglican mission in England, because there was an attempt at a press conference to launch it, and
Nobody
more
showed.
people. No, there's no show from journalists. More people were speaking than journalists who turned up. So that's a bit of a fail. Sorry, guys. I love you, but that's a bit of a fail, really. Especially when you don't invite leading bloggers. Lambeth Palace invites leading bloggers, right? I'm on the Lambeth Palace news list and so on. It's great.
Wow.
So Anglican Mission in England, if you want to organise a press conference properly, come and see me. I will help you out. So, what there is, though, I think under the surface, is a realization that GAFCON means business. And that links into our second thing that we're going to talk about, Kevin, which is the pilling report and the leaks and rumours as to what's going to be in it. And I think there's a sense that people in the Church of England and the Church of England hierarchy, including Justin Welby, realise that the primates that go to GAFCON, the church leaders are serious that they will just bypass Canterbury, dare I say bypass the Church of England in their Anglicanism if the Church of England starts to drift in a manner too liberal.
Well, let's take a second. We have lots of new viewers every week. What is the Pilling Report?
So the Pilling Report is so named after a guy called Sir Joseph Pilling, who's a retired civil servant, and he's chairing a committee made up of bishops and a few advisors who are looking at how the Church of England's stance on human sexuality, and in particular homosexuality.
Right.
And the last time that we had discussion documents, we had the famous issues in human sexuality back in the late 90s, or even late 80s. And then we had something called Some Issues in Human Sexuality, which was actually quite a conservative document around 2003. And then we've obviously had some responses to civil partnerships, civil unions, which we've got here in the UK. And that came out in 2005. So what the Pilling Report is doing is basically having a look again at how we manage pastorally around the issue of homosexuality. And it's due to report towards the end of the year. It will go to the archbishops and a few of the standing committee of the House of Bishops. From there, it will go to the full college of bishops. So not just the House of bishops, which are basically the diocesans and a few of the senior suffragans, but every bishop. And from there, they will decide what to do with it, and perhaps to bring it to synod, or to make some alterations in the recommendations, or just to do nothing.
Now let's talk about rumors. Let's not get me in trouble or you in trouble. Let's talk about the rumors.
I'm in enough trouble already.
Let's talk about the rumors that are in the press. The rumors in the press are that there will be a blessing liturgy. The rumors in the press are there will be no blessing liturgy.
Yeah.
The rumors in the press are that, listen, if we release this, it's all over.
What you've got to realise is that the last meeting of the committee to kind of finalise stuff was 2 weeks ago. Mm-hmm. So what you've got is a combination of people talking about the stuff that was presented to that meeting, and other people talking about the stuff that might have been finalised at that meeting. And what you might have had is some change in between those. So, yeah, at one point it looked as though there may have been some form of liturgy for same-sex friendships or something on the cards. Jonathan Peter in the Mail on Sunday this week that's just been this weekend said that what they're thinking about doing is dropping the requirement just for gay clergy to assure their bishops that they're not engaging in sex. And you know what, Kevin? That would work if they asked every bishop, every priest. Yeah, that would be fine. When I was candidating for ordination, my bishop, the DDO firstly, the diocesan director of ordinance, and then the bishop, sat me down and said, is your sex life in conformity with the teaching of the Church of England? And I've been able to say yes. And if the bishop sat me down today and said, is your sex life in conformity with the teaching of the Church of England, I could, without perjuring myself, say absolutely. It is. Now, I don't think that's an intrusive question. It's only intrusive if you've got something to hide, right?
Well, so do they go with the American don't ask, don't tell policy? Is that a solution?
What's interesting is that there are some parts of the Church of England, London, where don't ask, don't tell basically operate. And so the bishops know that there are some clergy who are in sexual relationships outside of marriage, but those clergy don't make a fuss about it, right? So they don't publicize it. However, we did have a famous case a few years ago with a priest who was basically very out about his sexual relationship, and Richard Chartres basically refused to renew his license or give him a PTO. So it's basically don't rock the boat, and we won't rock you, right? There are some dioceses where it's not quite anything goes, but the questions aren't asked. And there's some dioceses where the bishops take their job fairly seriously. I was just talking only in the last 24 hours to a priest who was asked by his bishop before ordination about these things. And the bishop then said to him, there are people in the Church of England who want to change this. And that's wrong. Now, whether that bishop maintains that view after pilling, that would be interesting.
Well, okay, let's play scenarios. Pilling report comes out, the archbishops release it. Pilling report scenario says we will have a liturgy for same-sex blessings. What then is the reaction to GAFCON?
Oh, the reaction from GAFCON is you're a bunch of apostate heretics, and it's fair game. What would be interesting in that scenario would be the reaction from within the House of Bishops, because there are a number of evangelical and traditionalist bishops who really haven't said a lot about this, but that's because their line in the sand hasn't yet been crossed. And what I'm picking up is that for some of them, as the line in the sand gets close, they're going to start saying stuff, and they're going to start going in the House of Bishops and saying we're not doing this. We're simply not going to do this, and that would be very interesting. I cannot believe that the House of Bishops would support in any way a liturgy that looks like it endorses a sexual same-sex relationship, okay, and that includes a presumption of celibacy, okay, because who are we kidding? Like, how many people out there have got celibate relationships that they want to bless? That's friendship. It's not eros. It's not erotic love.
Well, I mean, would that be available to Peter and Kevin to have our same-sex, non-sexual relationship blessed?
I think my wife might object, but
well, I mean, the hypocrisy here. I mean, let's just talk about, you can't have heterosexual same-sex or heterosexual blessing.
No, well, exactly.
So.
Either you're married or you're not, and we bless marriages. And people say, yeah, but Anglican bishops bless so many different things. Some priests used to bless the fox hunt and blessing tractors and ships and so on. Yes, and I wouldn't bless half of those things. Though fox hunting is quite cool actually. There's your controversy for the day. But here's the thing: we don't have a liturgy, a formal liturgy to bless ships. Okay, and what's that famous Latin phrase, which I'm probably now going to totally misquote on there? Lex orandi, lex credendi. Okay, what we pray is what we believe. So Anglicanism doesn't have doctrinal statements. Okay, what it has is liturgy, and the liturgy says what we believe, and so it doesn't matter if the Church of England says, well, here's a liturgy and you can use it if you want to, but you don't have to, and you're under no obligation to use it. Rubbish. If it's formal Anglican liturgy, it's what the Anglican Church believes. Okay.
Well, what happens if that liturgy is the opposite of Lambeth 110?
Don't even go there.
I'm sorry.
I cannot see the Church of England doing something that would be contrary to Lambeth 110. What I can see them doing is trying to fudge it. And there'll be people like me pointing out, this is a fudge. Basically, Kevin, praying for two people in a quote covenanted friendship will not work unless the two people explicitly, publicly commit themselves to lifelong celibacy in public, out loud. Okay. At which point you go, fine. Okay. What you basically got is a little monastery of two people, right? That's cool. I can do that. But you kind of wonder, well, if you are committed to celibacy, why don't you just go and join a monastery?
Right.
Or join a religious order. That would work. Okay. Public avowal of celibacy for life. Okay, that would work. Who's going to do that? Who's going to be in a relationship? There are very, very few people. There are some, but there are very few people who would do that. That is the only thing that would work. A nod and a wink towards we assume that it's a celibate will not work, and that is the line in the sand. So what we might get is an Anglican fudge. But there will be plenty of us screaming out, going, that is sugar condensed down in a saucepan. We're not having it.
Okay. We're worried about the internals, how the bishops and clergy in England would react to the Pilling Report. Do you think the Pilling Commission cares about what the Anglican Communion would care about?
I think the Pilling Commission is more concerned about something that will work in England. I think the House of Bishops are desperately concerned about the rest of the Anglican communion. And remember, you've got people like John Sentamu there, whose origins are Uganda, right?
Yeah.
Comes from, and you've got all these diocesan links with different parts. And let me tell you, some of the bishops in these diocesan links are telling the diocesan bishops here in England, if you do this, we're over, right? We're finished. So there is all this external pressure, and I think what GAFCON this time around has helped to do is to focus some of the bishops in the Church of England to realise GAFCON is for real. It's not going away, and it is where the center of the Anglican Communion is moving. And so they need to consider that.
They need to, because I think a press conference held after the Pillen Report endorsed liturgy of same-sex blessings would be much more well attended.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely, and it would be a journalist's delight. Now, as you say, whether that happens, I don't know. What will happen is that the report will go to the archbishops, to the standing committee of the House of Bishops, and they will discuss it. And remember, you've got people like Christopher Coxworth on there, who is the Bishop of Coventry and the head of the Faith and Order Commission. He's a good evangelical, so I suspect any move of liberalization is actually going to be blocked in fairly senior places. What you might get is that the Conservatives block it and the Liberals go ape about it. Already changing attitude are basically, oh yeah, we love them. Hello, Colin. Already changing attitude are basically saying, unless this endorses gay relationships, it's a failure, right?
Right.
Well, I think that's setting themselves up for a fall, because I don't think you will get a same-sex blessing liturgy.
Well,
like a sexual relationship. That's never going to happen.
We've heard from Canterbury. This is the official response from the Church of England, right?
Not that well connected
No,
yet.
no, okay. Peter, I want to thank you for your time this week. We had a great discussion about GAFCON and the Pillen Report. You and I are obviously going to be talking more about this because what is the official release date? Do we have that yet?
We don't. The College of Bishops is meeting, I believe, in January.
Mm-hmm.
I suspect the report will have been to the standing committee by then. Whether it leaks, I don't know. I think, given all the media speculation and the fact that people have been a bit too loose-lipped in the past month or so, I suspect there's a real clampdown now. So, I suspect that we will not find out until the College of Bishops meets, if even then.
So that gives Peter and I at least 3 months of speculation. Peter.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Peter.
And there's possibly much more exciting Church of England news coming up soon.
Great. Thank you for your time, Peter.
Thanks.
All right, we're going to close out Anglican Unscripted, episode 85. And obviously, lots of news this week. We got to talk about GAFCON, the Episcopal Church, our favorite topics. We'll have more to talk about next week. Let's just talk quickly as we close up how journalism has changed. And I know, because you and I have a dear friend who just lost his job in journalism. He's been a professional for well over 30 years, writing for the same employer. That's changed. And one of the reasons these things change is because how people receive their news and how news is delivered has changed. And the value of news has changed because so many people do it for free. The blogosphere provides news basically for free. It's forcing newspapers to put their content online for free or ad-supported. And that's changed a lot of how George and I have to deliver news as well. We raise money for travel and stuff like that, but there is no income derived from Anglican TV, Anglican Unscripted, or Anglican Inc., because there's no model that would support that. 25,000 viewers does not bring in a lot of money. George, your name and popularity are as good as ever.
Well, let's look at my own work. I used to write 4 pages of international news each week for the Church of England newspaper. The newspaper has cut down its number of pages because subscriptions have remained the same. I think they've had the same number of subscribers since 1828. I don't think they've fallen or risen. But advertising revenues are flat, costs are higher, postage is higher, and so they've cut down. So I only write 1 page of international news. Now, I have never had a greater reach and audience. In other words, I have more readers across more magazines and journals and newspapers than I've ever had in my career. But I'm making less money now than I did 5, 6 years ago. simply because the revenue streams that funded these operations have so changed that people are paying less and demanding more.
Why are we talking about this? Well, no, we're not going to charge a subscription. However, there are places during Anglican Unscripted and the ban on Anglican Inc. where you as an advertiser can place an ad. We had not had a lot of video ads because a lot of churches don't have the ability to make their own ads. And so you're not going to see a lot of ads. However, if you would like to produce and place an ad on Anglican Unscripted, you're welcome to. We have a very large audience. Please contact me at AnglicanTV@gmail.com. If you want to place a banner ad at AnglicanInc.com, we have a viewership of about 6,000 readers a week. You're welcome to do it there as well. I'm providing a link here to what I call our demo chart. Tells you exactly, where and how to contact us to put ads up. Are we going to make income? No. Are we going to pay the bills? Yes.
If any of our viewers work for a tobacco company, tobacco is not regulated on the internet.
No.
Kevin and I will start smoking. And if you would like us to sell Chesterfields for that, for the T-zone that makes it a fine, mellow smoke, we're happy to do so. Now, people talk about a great, vast right-wing conspiracy that funds these things. Somebody please direct them to us. Because we haven't accepted any bribes that I'm aware of to slant our news.
Yeah, as the bribe taker, I've taken no bribes yet. So we're for sale. We'll bribe ourselves out. I'm Kevin Carlson.
And I'm George Conger. And you've been watching episode 85 of Anglican Unscripted.
However, if you do get a box of Anglican TV and it's meowing, open it right away. I'm Kevin Carlson.
And I'm George Conger. And today's November 14th, 2013.
Cool, we'll go with that. Not a happy kitten.
That's one of the little girls. They scream more.
They do.
The boys are more adventurous and like to roughhouse. The girls are like to hide under their mother's...
Little whinies, yes.
Yes.
Yeah. 3, 2,